Welcome to the week 4 go-to session. This is the final of 4 sessions we're hosting this month. First of all, thanks to everybody who was patient last week when I fell ill and I had to use another instructor's recording. Luckily, we instructors pretty much go over the same material, so there was no problem there with the week 3 lecture, but usually I host all 4 lectures myself. As I said before I started this session, this one's going to be pretty short because I don't have as much to go over, so I'm just going to jump into it. And let's get rolling. Okay, so welcome to week 4. Believe it or not, we're just about done. Yeah, that's how this course works. It can be intense. It's definitely fast moving. The good side, I guess, is that it's over before you know it. So yes, we're in the home stretch. Okay, final week, and then we all get a nice little break as we celebrate the holidays. But I'll encourage you to stay strong for at least one more week. And yeah, that's what this session is about, okay? The final week stuff. If I give a reminder, okay, every week in this class is devoted to a separate stage in the writing process. So we're here right now, getting feedback, revising. There are basically 2, I'd say, major activities for this week. There's a peer review session, which is handled through turnitin.com. You have to have submitted a paper to Turnitin in order to participate in this activity. So if you got your paper submitted, then you're in good shape. Oh gosh, here, let me get away from this for just a second and show a couple things. Okay, so here we are on the FSO platform. If we go down to week 4, here's peer review. It ends tomorrow, okay? The department sets up our classes and our due dates. I have the flexibility to change them. And honestly, I probably would have given people one more day on this, but I can't change this one. Okay, so peer review ends tomorrow. So try to remember that. Try to stay on top of it, because I can extend things on FSO, but I can't extend things on Turnitin, and that's the problem. So there's a peer review activity. Again, if you submitted an essay, you're in good shape. You'll have 2 papers automatically distributed to you. I think I can go into the assignment. Yeah, so you're kind of seeing things from the instructor's viewpoint. As you can see, people get 2 papers submitted to them, and then you have 2 reviews to write. And basically, when you go into the activity, let me see if I can show the questions. Is there anybody who's done any reviews yet? Not looking like it. So a lot of people have tonight and tomorrow to do this, okay? Yeah, this is probably the only crunched part of the month, peer review. It's a bit of, okay, Grace, good. Looks like you've done 1, so let's see. Okay, I'll try not to show too much of Grace's work since she's here with us, but I just wanted to show you the prompts. Let's see, where are they? Oh, here they are. So you have these questions to answer, okay? Like, state which ad was chosen. What is the thesis? Can you clearly see what the thesis statement is? Can you see the main points? And so on. What questions you have? Basically, what could use room for improvement? Like, what could you see that could be clarified? And so on. Okay, make 2 suggestions to improve the work. Emphasize positives that you see in this draft. What could be improved for the next draft? Okay, so basically there's 4 prompts to answer, and your task is to answer them with some thoughtfulness and depth. Okay, obviously 1 or 2 sentences isn't really going to cut it. And I believe, let me go into the peer review activity real quickly. Okay, you got the rubric. Yeah, so here's the rubric so you can see how you're being graded. I'm trying to see. It looks like there's no word count requirement. Sometimes there is. But yeah, figure you've got to write maybe a short paragraph for each, meaning 4 or 5 sentences maybe for each of those 4 prompts. Okay, there are only 4 questions to answer. But yeah, you have to, here's my advice. My advice is when you get the 2 papers, read through it carefully. I like to just read it through once just to get the gist, and then read it a second time a bit more closely. But at least read it closely enough so that you have a good sense of what the paper is doing before you sit down and answer those responses. Grace is saying somewhere it says 100-word minimum for each question. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I wanted to say I saw a word count somewhere. I just couldn't remember it. And 100 words isn't terribly long. Try it sometime on Microsoft Word. Use the word count tool. You'll see that it's like, I don't know, 3 or 4 lines. A full page of text is usually around 300 words. So think of that as, yeah, about a third of a page. Maybe a little bit less to get to 100 words. But yeah, make sure that you read the papers carefully and make sure that you have a pretty good handle on how they're operating. Another piece of advice I'd give is think back to the feedback I've been giving you all month. Okay? It's not that it's your job to play teacher, but in some ways, it might help you to think that way. Okay? Look at it with that kind of critical eye and look for very basic things like is there a thesis? Are there 3 clear analysis points in the essay? Is the essay feeling like analysis? Um, if you kind of keep those basic guidelines, the things we've been focusing on all month, you should be in pretty good shape. And I'm going to give some more tips here about peer review in general. Here, let me get past this stuff because we already looked at it. Oops. Well, yeah, there are two. Okay, there are 2 graded activities this week: the peer review, and then obviously your revision of your draft. So this week you're going to be getting a whole bunch of peer feedback, some reviews from your peers, and also from me. And that's going to help you revise to hand in the paper again for the final day of class. There's also a reflection assignment. Now this assignment is a little bit, it's not tricky. It's actually pretty straightforward and easy, but it's not weighted, okay? It doesn't receive a grade. But sometimes students think, oh, okay, it's not graded, so I'll just skip that. No, you have to do the self-reflection essay because there is a loss of professionalism points, 20 points for not doing it. So yeah, it's not an official graded activity, but there is a loss of points for not doing it. And I'll show the self-reflection questions a bit later, and you'll see it's pretty straightforward. It's questions like, uh, asking you to reflect on this month, how you developed as a writer, how your ideas changed over the course of the month, how your paper changed, stuff like that. So yeah, there's no right or wrong answers. You're literally just answering from your point of view. So it's not terribly difficult, but there is a short reflection essay that needs to be handed in. Okay. Yeah, so this kind of stuff here under the bullet points is the stuff you'll be answering in your self-reflection. And that's usually about a page. Some people go on a bit longer. Some people get really into it and write 2 or 3 pages. But you have some specific prompts that I'll show you in a bit that you have to answer. Oops, hold on, I lost my cursor. And let me go ahead and, hold on a second. Let me mute some people. Okay, good. Actually, you know what? While I have this open, let me show real quickly. Okay, so here's the self-reflection essay. And as you can see, it's worth 0%. But again, there's a penalty for not doing it. And that's also due the last day of class. So peer review ends tomorrow night. So some of you will have to get a move on with that. But the other 2 things are the self-reflection essay and then, of course, revising your paper. Those are due the final day of class. But here are the prompts you need to answer. Okay? What did you expect from this class? Did it meet your expectations? How confident were you in your writing abilities? How did your essay change from one version to the next? Yeah, it's basically pretty straightforward questions. Please answer it in essay form. Okay, don't just copy and paste the questions and then answer them with a single sentence. Just sit down and write, okay, actual sentences, actual paragraphs, and make sure that you're answering these questions along the way, and you'll be fine. Okay, basically, as long as you answer these thoughtfully and pay some attention to, making sure that it's proofread and as error-free as possible, yeah, you'll do fine, okay? This is not a high-stakes activity, but we do want you to kind of reflect on what you've gone through during the month. But yeah, by design, it's kind of a low-stakes activity, okay? Let me go back to the main thing here. So you can see, okay, the revision and that reflection essay are both due the last day of class. And yeah, I'm grading papers now, so figure it's going to take me tonight, tomorrow. Hopefully I'll have them finished tomorrow. If it takes me into Thursday, you guys know how the month is gone. I tend to be flexible, and maybe it drives some students crazy, but I don't think students usually complain when there's extensions. I know the due dates maybe that part could be chaotic if due dates keep changing, but for the most part, students are okay with it because who doesn't love more time? So yeah, if for some reason, because I have 3 classes of students to grade, if it takes me into Thursday, I'll obviously be flexible with the due date on Sunday. Okay, so people who, let's say, don't feel like they have enough time to revise, they might think, oh gosh, I only have uh, Friday, Saturday, Sunday to work on my paper and fix the things that my peers have mentioned or David has mentioned. Don't worry, I can be flexible. Just let me know, and I can. You can hand it in on Monday or Tuesday, especially since we're going into a long break. Right? There's nothing on my plate after this week except 2 weeks off. So yeah, if you feel crunched, if you feel like things are getting overwhelming, just let me know, and I'll probably say, sure, hand it in Monday or hand it in Tuesday. Okay, and that will work for everybody. That will also give me time to make sure that I respond to everybody as carefully as I can. Okay, because you guys have seen my feedback tends to be pretty in depth, so I don't just slap a grade in 2 sentences and move on to the next paper. So I'd like to spend some time with each student. I like to think of it as like a letter, crafting a personal letter to each student, but that takes time. What is this? Well, this is your instructions for the revision assignment. Okay, make sure that you read through these on your own. But yeah, this is the gist. Okay, you're going to revise your essay, top to bottom, meaning if there are content issues to work on, meaning information in your essay itself. Of course, you're going to work on that, but it also means things like APA format, grammar, proofreading. Okay, and there's some notes here. And I'm going to discuss a few of these right now, talking about revision. If you look at the word revision, it's got that interesting word in there, vision, right? So it kind of means to see things again. That's what means, right? To do again. So it means taking another look at your paper. And depending on what kind of shape your draft was in, maybe you'll have quite a bit of revision to do, or maybe you'll have fine tuning to do. Okay. Um, some papers are very far along. Others, maybe they need a bit more work, or maybe some papers are terrific, but APA format was kind of off, or it seriously needed a case of proofreading. And actually, these differences between kind of content related issues, big picture related issues, and the smaller stuff like grammar, there are specific terms for that, which I'm going to describe on the next slide, I believe. Here, you just have a quick look at the rubric, okay, how you're being graded. So if you want to see what it generally takes to get an A, this is what you need to do. A B, a C, and so on. And note these things too. There's a 5-point deduction for, I just call it text speak, when people leave out contractions from words like I've or I'm, or when people use lowercase I instead of the capital letter I, right? I call those text speak errors. It may not literally be text speak like typing the letter U for the word Y-O-U, but it seems like a similar sort of cousin to those same errors because they're errors of convenience. When people want to jot something off quickly, they usually skip those things like capitalizing. But there's a 5-point deduction. I typically will skip one, maybe two if it's a long piece. But when I see a pattern, that's when I start taking off points. I mean, anybody can make a single error. I understand that. I too sometimes send out an email and then I realize, oh my gosh, there's a typo or there's an error. But yeah, when it's a pattern of error, that becomes a bit more seriously. Note too here that a lack of substantial revision can also result in a deduction of 20 points from the professionalism grade, or actually the assignment grade. So yeah, that's basically for people who hand in the same paper again. And not because it was already in terrific shape the first time around. There was revision to do, but it wasn't really tackled. Yeah, there's a 20-point penalty for lack of meaningful revision. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about revising. And actually, this applies to peer review as well. So think of this as kind of like a two-headed monster. We're talking about both you sitting down to revise your paper, but also what you need to do when you sit down and review the two papers you've been assigned in the peer review activity. It's always important to start with global issues. Now, global issues don't refer to, for example, starving children in Africa or um, any number of political things we see in the news. No, global in this case just means big picture, okay? Big stuff. So for a paper, that would mean things like content, organization, thesis, right? The kind of big things that apply to the paper overall. Why do we start with these things first? Because they're the most important. Why worry about an individual comma or an individual spelling error if perhaps those sentences are going to be removed? Because there's a whole bunch of global revision to do. When it comes to peer review, I would encourage people to focus mostly on global issues. Okay, so when you're reading the paper, it's less important to say, hey, on page 3, you misspelled a word. Okay, that helps that student fix that one word. But what if there are bigger problems in the essay? What if there isn't a clear thesis? Or what if the student is just summarizing the ad or describing it or retelling it, but never really gets around to analyzing it? Like those are big issues that need to be pointed out. So yeah, when you're looking through peer review and you're answering those 4 prompts, try to concentrate as much as possible on global issues. And speaking of your paper, these are all global issues, okay? So matters of thesis. Do you have a clear thesis that listed the 3 elements that work in your ad that you're going to analyze? Remember way back in week 1, we took a look at 2 car ads, including a Jeep ad. And for that ad, I said that what interested me was the use of color, the use of imagery, and the ad's tagline. Okay, those were my 3 areas that I would explore in my paper. And I mentioned them in a thesis statement. Okay, so is there a thesis? And once you have those three elements, those 3 aspects of the ad that you're going to analyze, those become your paragraphs, right? Paragraph 1, 2, 3. So I would have specific paragraphs on color, imagery, the ad's tagline for the Jeep ad. Okay, and is there a clear conclusion where you echo or restate your thesis and bring things to a natural close? So yeah, look at what we're talking about here. Thesis, organization, so 1 idea per paragraph, development. These are the sorts of global issues you should be looking at both when you revise and when you read your peers' papers for peer review. I'm going to go through this really quick. I'll mention it because some students find this incredibly useful, some don't, but there's something called the highlighter method you can use to revise. And it's mostly helpful with organization, making sure that your essay is built soundly, as in the last slide we looked at. This looks like, I know, a huge kind of mass of words, a bunch of gibberish, okay? But really this is the introduction, your 3 body paragraphs, conclusion. And the task here is to color code your different ideas. So if you list 3 things in your thesis, give them each different color. Then go through your body paragraphs and make sure that everything in those paragraphs matches that same color. Okay. Oops, I kind of went past that too quickly. Because if you find things that are, if you're doing this honestly, okay, if you're finding things in that paragraph that, for example, here is colored green or orange, then you know you're kind of off topic. Okay. Some people can do this just fine on their own. I don't use the highlighter method because I think I'm pretty good at organization and staying focused. But if you're unsure of yourself, here's a technique you can use. Revision also includes editing. So these are the smaller stuff. So the opposite of global is local. Local issues are proofreading, spelling, grammar, mechanics, all that kind of smaller stuff, right? It's not that it's unimportant, it just is secondary in importance. Global issues need to be addressed first, then you go back to editing issues, okay, cleaning things up. And there's some tricks to help you with this as well. There's what's called the last to first method. And this is just literally reading your essay backwards. Because if you read it backwards, it disrupts your brain's ability to just automatically plug things in. There have been studies that have been done, and I actually participated in an experiment once, just an in-class experiment with the teacher, where we were put into groups and we were given a paragraph until we had to find, I think, like 6 errors. And these weren't like esoteric errors. These weren't errors like, look for comma splices or look for wrong comma usage. No, nothing like that. Just really basic stuff like a missing word or a misspelled word, like something just gross and obvious. And none of the groups could find all 6. And when we were pointed out the one that was missing, yeah, it was a simple missing word like the word of. And why couldn't we see it? Because our brain automatically fills in things. We actually don't read every word we see on the page. Our brain is so used to reading that it anticipates what's coming and automatically puts things in there. That's why if you do the last to first method, it disrupts that. Because, yeah, there are times where you literally won't see the most obvious of errors because your brain is filling in those spots automatically. But if you disrupt that and read things out of order, backwards, you can catch things easier. Yeah, and if you can, if you're not doing things at the last second, stepping away from your project and then coming back can help tremendously. Full Sail is an artsy school, so I'm sure we must have artsy people here. Musicians, artists, like, people who can draw, filmmakers, graphic designers. If you're in that camp, you probably know what I'm talking about already. You know what it feels like sometimes to walk away from something you're working on, then come back to it later because it feels fresh. It feels like you're seeing it for almost the first time again. If you're staring at the screen too long, everything just starts to sound either terrible or awesome. But taking a break and then coming back to it allows you to be more objective and spot things a bit easier. The Full Sail Writing Center. Has anybody here ever used it before? You can, let me see, I'm going to go ahead and type in the address in the chat. If you send an email to writingcenter@fullsail.com, you can schedule an appointment. You do need to book 24 hours in advance. And if you're an online student, that's fine. We have plenty of tutors who work online. So if you need help with something very specific, then yeah, take advantage. Full Sail Writing Center is there for you. Grace says that she used it, or I went to the APA lecture last week and it helped out. Oh, okay. Where was an APA lecture? Was it something here on campus, or are you referring to the week 3 lecture that I posted? Is something online? Okay. Yeah, and by the way, APA is something that the Writing Center can help with as well. All the tutors are either, trained tutors or instructors. Sometimes I help out in the Writing Center. So they definitely know APA stuff. Okay. We've already talked about this. Revision takes time. The assignment is due on Sunday. Yes, but I'll be flexible. If people are feeling crunched, just let me know and we can play with that date a little bit. Plus, I don't know. I try to be flexible because, to be honest, why should I get so angry if it's Monday and I haven't even gotten to your papers yet? I don't know if that makes sense, right? Like, why get so angry if I haven't even gotten to the essays yet? Why would I be furious if Charles's paper isn't there or Michael's paper isn't there yet? If I haven't even gotten to the pile yet. So let me know. We can be flexible on due dates. Because after next week, I have 2 weeks basically free. So what else can I do? What else do I have to do other than grade? Okay, we talked about reflection. I'm trying to kind of breeze through some of this stuff. Those prompts on the peer review, they're actually based on this model here called the RISE model for self-evaluation. It's got a nice little pyramid here. Basically, it's a way to guarantee that you're writing quality responses. But the prompts are set up that way so that you're following this model. Also for the reflection, use APA format. This shouldn't be a big deal because if you already used APA for your draft, it should be a snap to do. Or you could just eliminate the text from your draft and retitle it and just use the formatting for your reflection. How was APA for most people? Everything from the cover page to setting up spacing, the creation of the header, the handling of references, citations. Do people feel like they were comfortable with that? Or they would more hands-on training with this stuff be helpful? I've always thought about devoting part of a go-to session just to walking through the steps, at least with layouts, like setting up the paper, because it's not terribly difficult to do. Okay, I'm not getting any responses, so. Let's see, did I forget anything before I get to questions? Okay, so just as a quick reminder, here's week 4, right? So the final Learn Smart Achieve over at McGraw-Hill needs to be completed. And otherwise, it's peer review, the revision of your essay, and then that self-reflection thing, okay? Charles says it was tough, had to do some research on it. Yeah, I don't know, maybe next month. That won't help you guys because this is this month. But I should go in and just, because it's not terribly difficult. Like here's a blank Microsoft Word document. And double clicking at the top of the page allows you to start creating the header, right? And I'd have to double check too, like, is this supposed to be capitalized? And projectapa.info, which I used in one of the other sessions. But that's another good place to go to as well, because you get an example what it's supposed to look like. So if you forget things, you can just copy the imitation there. But yeah, running head, your title goes here. Okay. And there's a cover page that has to be made. But let's imagine that this is page 1 of the document. Then your title goes here, gets centered. You make sure that it's set up for double spacing, which is this guy here. Right? And then you can just start typing away. Right? My paper goes here. My paper goes here. And then when you get to the end of a paragraph, let's imagine the paragraph ends here. You just hit enter once, not twice, not 10 times, just once, and keep going. Oops. And then let's say that we're on page 2 or 3 or something. Once you get to the end of your paper, you skip down to a brand new clean page. And again, at the very top. Okay, so we were here at the very top. We type the word references. And that's where we can start putting in our information. Right? Like Smith, J. Title of article goes here. And it always follows special capitalization rules. Okay, so just you capitalize like you would a normal sentence. So nothing gets capitalized except for the first letter of the first word, unless a proper noun appears, like someone's name or the name of a city or a company. Okay, and then if it's a website, you put in the name of the publication. Then there's a retrieve from line. Actually, make that a little longer. I want it to go down to the second line. Oh, that's all going to be read as one. Okay, right. And then, oops, I think I did something wrong there. Come on. Oh, I know what it's doing. It's trying to go to that web page. Okay. Anyway, I'm not sure why I'm showing you all this, but anyway, what I'm trying to say is that APA isn't that terribly difficult. Okay, and I think that there were some walkthrough videos and some documents for you to look at. I didn't make the cover page. I just pretended this was page 1 of the essay. But yeah, it's not that difficult. It's really more about double spacing, making sure that paragraphs are indented, and just following the example. And that projectapa.info, it has a sample paper for you to look at. Okay, so if any of you have to clean this stuff up for revision, yeah, this also counts, okay? APA type stuff. What was on the... Okay, so title, name. Okay, your name and your school, halfway down the page. Okay, so actually I could create that pretty quickly too. Anyway, we're in the Q&A session, by the way. So if you have any questions about this week's stuff or about the course as a whole, now is the time to ask. So why don't you go ahead and start asking while I play around with this. That's supposed to be in the middle of the page, approximately. Yeah, that looks like the middle of the page. Of course, that screwed up this. So, boom. There we go. Yeah, looking good. Obviously, I still have to insert page numbers. But does anybody have any questions about this week's material, about the course as a whole? As usual, if you're comfortable with what we've gone over in this session, I really don't have that much more to go over. Week 4 is very simple. It's about just handing in final stuff. So if you're comfortable with what we've discussed and you don't have any questions, you're allowed to go enjoy the rest of your evening. I'm going to hang out a little bit, though, and answer some questions, okay? You see, I've got a newer version of Word, so I'm still learning how to figure out things here, too. So insert, let's see, page numbers. There we go. This should be at the top of the page on the right. Yes, we want the number on the first page. Boom, we got page numbers. Now there is a little trick. On the second page, the header is supposed to be different than the cover page, right? Because, yeah, on page 1 it says running head. On page 2, it loses running head. Charles says it would help, but you have a Mac, so it's different. Yeah, I mean, but basically all these functions are there, no matter what version of Word you're using. So you should be able to find the tool somewhere. Grace says, when citing resources on the references page, is it okay to put the URL for the home page if the URL for an article is too long? I don't know. I mean, why is the URL for the article so long? That sounds odd. Oh, here we go. To change it, different first page. It always makes it disappear. Okay. And then I think I can change this one maybe. Bingo. See, now we got the running head on, because it's just supposed to be on the cover page. It's announcing to the reader there's going to be a running header. So on the other pages, you don't need running head. Anyway, that's how you get rid of it. Once you're in the header, you click on this little guy here, different first page, and you can go in and change that one and then the subsequent ones. Yeah, Grace, I don't know, is it difficult for you to find? It just goes onto 2 lines, according to, it says use a home page. Yeah, if that's what it says, if it says on Project APA, go ahead and do that. I mean, if it goes onto 2 lines, I mean, that's not a big problem, I don't think. What I was trying to show here is the indentation. Where's my ruler? There we go. Oops. If you grab this little guy here, but just that little guy, and drag it over, that's how you indent the second line. Because references follow reverse rules for indentation. And actually, since we have some people hanging out here, and because this might be useful for people who watch this after the fact, let me go to Full Sail Connect real quickly. And Charles says, yes, there's another way too. You can go to paragraph and set up a hanging indent. That's right. That's absolutely true. I'm kind of old school. Sometimes I don't know how to do those things, so I just do it manually. But another neat trick is because you were supposed to find at least one article through the library databases. I remember I found a decent one on Jeep. Don't know if I'm going to find it automatically. Anyway, let's say it's this article that I like. Okay. There is this neat trick where if you go to the right and use the cite tool, that's fine. You just have to fix the mistakes that it makes. Like, this one's actually wrong. Yeah, the article title should go in front of the date if there's no author. So yeah, you have to fix things like that. Let me find one that's a little bit more, hopefully, typical. How about this one? Okay, so if we go to the cite tool, there we go. Okay, APA. It's fine if you just want to grab it, because usually it's mostly right. And even here, the capitalization is right. That's something they screw up. Sometimes they don't, they capitalize keywords, which you don't do in APA. Or sometimes they put the author's names in all caps. That's not right. But if you can fix that stuff, I don't have a problem with grabbing the citation. And then you just put it in here. Move this out of the way. And you can click on match destination formatting so it's in the same font size and style as the rest of your text. Okay. And the only thing you have to do here is add a retrieve from line. And if you're using the library database, you grab the permalink, because if you just grab the URL, it's going to result in an error. But if you grab the permalink, that will work. I'm sorry, I have to keep moving things out of the way. Boom. And if it's something online, like let me just type in something, Taylor Swift. Yeah, don't ask me. I love Taylor Swift, so I'm going to use her as an example. Let's see. Rolling Stone. Obviously, you wouldn't be citing Taylor Swift in any of your articles. I'm just using this as an example. But if it's a website, we have everything we need. Okay, we have a title, we have an author, and we have a date. So what is his name? Els, Josh Els. So even if I have to create it from scratch, I can do that pretty easily too. So actually, they should be in alphabetical order. Okay. September 8th, 2014. Yeah, for publications that are published often, like a popular magazine, it's typical to put in the full date. Usually other things, journals that are published a couple times a year, you just put the year. What was that? The reinvention of Taylor Swift. Okay, so we capitalized Taylor Swift's name because that's someone's name. And that's in Rolling Stone. And again, we just need that retrieve line, which would be the URL. That went in the chat box, not the... Okay. Yeah, that's how easy it is. Really, really, it's not terribly difficult. I know I'm doing it fast, and it might seem like it's maybe easier, but it really is that easy once you get the hang of it. Um, Charles says he has a question not related to class. Your launchbox will be here Thursday at the latest. Will it have the programs I need? I believe so. It will come installed with a bunch of things, and as Grace is giving you a head up, she just gave you some info. Um, yeah, like I don't know if it's in the past things like Microsoft Word you sometimes had to download, but students had something to click on to download it. I don't know if that's still true if it comes already installed on the machine, but I believe yeah you should be set. Just like when I get my machine, it's pretty much good to go. Yours should be as well. And then you'll see the MacBook is pretty sweet. I like it. I'll never go back to PC. Ooh, I should go ahead and stop the recording now because all the people watching this after the fact are probably actually, you know what? They'll benefit from the stuff we just went over, the APA stuff, because I just sort of showed in real time how to set up the entire paper. So for the people reviewing, I'm going to stop the recording now.